This time we're going to do things a little bit differently than what you're used to on this channel, and I really hope you guys are at least somewhat accepting of this format, which is I just want to take you guys out exploring on a night ride and kind of give you my commentary on either updates on different builds I'm doing, what the channel's doing, my own insane thoughts about the philosophies of this world. It could be anything, it could be nothing, I'm not sure. I just want to try something a little bit differently for at least some of the videos, but don't worry, my normal style of doing things is always going to be there present because I build stuff and I want to show you guys what I'm building. Even though it may not appear that way when you compare it to some other channels, I actually spend a ton of time on editing, filming, post-processing, voiceover work, everything into every video. It takes me a very long time and it is a lot of effort. By far the hardest part about making videos for me is doing the voiceover work, and trust me, I have debated many times to just drop the voiceover altogether because there are a ton of channels that don't have any voiceover, no music, no real production other than some editing cuts, and they're doing just fine. They're very successful, so I don't even know if the voiceover is adding to the experience. You might even argue that it's taking away from the experience. All I really know is I try to make the videos that I personally myself would want to watch, and I am definitely curious behind the scenes of what the person was thinking or how they even are feeling about their own creations. To me, that is very interesting. The thing is, if I drop the voiceovers, I could actually make a lot more videos and a lot more quickly. Believe it or not, the voiceover is the thing that kind of limits me and slows me down a whole ton because I am hypercritical of almost everything I do, and trust me, when I sit down to record my voice, which I don't particularly like to begin with, and having to hear it back, and you know, it's very easy to make a ton of mistakes when you're trying to present something as fluidly and as cleanly as possible, because there are so many times where you just lose your train of thought, or you say a bunch of times to kind of pause and make more space. But I try to make my voiceovers as smooth and as good as possible, but a lot of people, or some people, have commented that I sound like a robot, and I'm not trying to sound like a robot. I'm just trying to sound like a person who isn't just stuttering over every word they're saying. So I'm hoping that I can use this format of video to kind of let go of the over criticality, and if I say or have a huge pause or slip up a word and need to say it again, I'm just gonna leave it in, or I'm going to try to work on it, but it's very hard for me. And hopefully you guys want to see these kinds of videos, but if you don't, that is totally fine, and trust me, I'll know from the analytics if this is something you want to see. So if you don't, that's totally cool. I will just keep these night rides to myself then, and I just will make the same kind of videos I made before, and that is totally fine. Now that we have that all out of the way, and speaking of over criticality, I would like to say, or apologize, I guess, for the very terrible quality of this image. Trust me, this pains me to release because all of the camera equipment I have is definitely no good for low light visibility, low light situations. It is terrible. My phone is not even that new, and usually I'll film with a DSLR, but I'm not strapping that gigantic thing to my head or my bike, so this is what I have to work with. My friend gave me a very old Hero. It's not even like a Hero 1 or 2, it's like a very old GoPro, and that's what you're seeing in a lot of these shots. And so if you guys want to see more of these type of videos, I will definitely invest in much better camera equipment for this type of filming. To recap this extraneously long intro, I'm basically just asking you for feedback. Do you want to see more videos kind of like this? Do you want voiceovers or not? I just want to bring you guys the things that you actually want to see and enjoy. So there's that, and any feedback would be greatly appreciated, and I thank you very much for that. You know, it's actually been a while since I've been on a proper night ride where I'm just kind of going out to ride. I don't have a destination. I'm not going to my friend's house. I'm not doing anything other than just riding for the enjoyment of riding. And I'm going to be honest with you, I had an incredible time just doing this. I did it for the purpose kind of making this video and just kind of filming stuff, but also just to go and ride. I mean, I am very busy. I do a bunch of things, so having some time just for myself, it feels really good. And the added bonus of doing a night ride is, at least for this particular day, usually my city is crazily busy. There's always stuff going on, but I don't know, I just caught it at the perfect moment where there was almost nobody out. It was so amazing. I just felt like I had the entire city to myself, and riding on this bike through the city and seeing all the lights and everything, it just felt incredible. The other main thing that helped this night be spectacular was the bike I was riding. You guys know this bike because I made a gigantic build series on it. It's about 20 kilowatts. It is insanely powerful. It's very fast, and it is so much fun to ride. Of course, I'm biased because not only did I make this bike, but this is my bike. I made it for myself, and I made it the way I wanted it for myself. And I can honestly say this bike is the pinnacle of everything I've made so far. There's none that are faster, there's none that are more comfortable, there's none that look cooler. To me, this bike has it all in terms of everything to my capabilities that I can make right now. This type or class of e-bike is definitely not something that I would recommend to most e-bike riders, but for the few that are willing to put up with the drawbacks, and there are quite a few with going with this type of platform, the benefits are immense. And for doing that specific thing that you want, this bike does it so incredibly well, and it is an absolute blast to ride. This type of bike definitely has its drawbacks, and I will just name off a few right now. One of them is that this bike is extremely heavy. It weighs about 130 pounds, and it's also very, very expensive. To get a bike like this, you're gonna have to pay like $5,000 to $10,000, which for most people, a bicycle or even an e-bike, that is an extraneous amount of money. You could buy a car, you could buy 2 cars, you could buy all kinds of motorcycles. You can get a very nice motorcycle for 10 grand. But having said all that, what you do get in return, if you're willing to put up with all of those drawbacks, is an ungodly amount of power. It just puts a gigantic smile on your face every time you twist the throttle. It never gets old. Trust me, I've ridden this bike many times. I've ridden other bikes. When you have a very fast e-bike, it is so insanely fun. Another great thing about this type of e-bike is that because there is so much suspension travel, when you're just riding on regular roads, it feels like you're on a cloud, and nothing, no matter what bumps or speed bumps, it doesn't matter, you are going to be feeling very comfortable. A lot of people refer to these bikes as stealth bombers or enduros or stealth clones because, let's be honest, stealth was the first bike that kind of made this type of frame and also made it very popular, although they were very expensive. So you saw a bunch of clones come in that were a lot less expensive but also a lot less quality. I personally refer to these as a gray bike or gray e-bike, and I am coining that term because to me that's what they are. They represent this gray area between a bicycle and a motorcycle. Now, I'm not trying to start a debate in my own comment section, but I will tell you, if you go on an e-bike subreddit and you ask some people to define what an e-bike is, you're going to start some chaos and you're going to start a war, because this has been a heavily debated subject for a very long time now, and nobody seems to have any idea how to classify things, not even countries. There's different laws for, some people go with how powerful the motor is, other people go with how fast the top speed is going to be. So there is much debate, and nobody has a perfect answer for what makes an e-bike and not an e-motorcycle. So if you want to talk about that in the comments, I will gladly hear. I personally don't have an opinion. To me, this is why I call these gray bikes, because it's a gray area. To me, it's kind of the same as that topic that rhymes with schmorschen. And you know, there is no clearly defined line between what is and what isn't. It's a very gray area. I did want to update you guys on this particular build, because in the last episode I was telling you guys about how I had this mental target for the top speed of this bike, which was between 67 and 70 miles per hour. I just felt like with the amount of power that I had, that this bike should easily kind of hit that number, and that was that. But to my surprise, this bike only quote unquote did 60 miles per hour, which is more than fast enough, and I don't even want to really go that fast. It's more of just on principle. I thought that this should do this and it didn't, so that made me very curious. You guys did give me a lot of great suggestions, and honestly I tried every single one of them. Some of you said if you turn on the controller display and change your tire size that it will actually allow you to go faster. I tried every different tire size, made absolutely no difference in the top speed, but I do appreciate you guys letting me know or giving me experiences that you've had to push your top speed a little more. At this point, I've pretty much exhausted all of the things that I personally could think of to make a difference in the top speed, and then I reached out to the manufacturers of the motor and the controller. I eventually got in contact with one of their engineers, and he had me run through a bunch of different settings and tests. I essentially did a dyno test with no resistance just to see the top RPM that I was able to hit, and I was maxing out around 1200 RPM, which he said for this motor is generally that area where you're gonna top out. I do not think my top speed is limited by any way by the power. I have more than enough power. I have tons of amps going through this, more than enough amps to get me to a very high top speed, but I think at this point I can kind of close the case as the RPMs is just capped out, and that mostly has to do with the voltage. There are a few solutions to this quote-unquote problem. One of them is dropping the turn number on the amount of windings I have on my motor. This is a 3.5T motor, and they do make a 2.5T, but I suspect I'll only get about 6 or 7 miles per hour, and honestly, even though I will hit my imaginary target that I set for myself in my head, I don't think it's worth swapping out a motor just to get that, especially when honestly most of the time I'm riding this bike is between the 20 and 35 mile per hour range. Another solution for a higher top speed would be moving to a higher voltage platform. That means going from a 72 volt system to a 96 or even 120 volt. But in order to do that, you need a new controller that's going to be able to handle that amount of voltage, and also a new battery that can output that voltage as well. So at least at this point, I don't think it's worth it at all to make any changes to this bike, because it is already brutally fast, and 60 miles per hour is already way faster than I feel comfortable riding this bike. I'm not going to be going on the freeway. It's not really designed for that. Plus it's illegal. So yeah, I'm totally happy with what I have, and if I ever do want to upgrade, at least I am equipped with the knowledge of what it would take for you to get a bike to go much faster. But I will say I will be making a lot more builds on this channel. Obviously I need to build things, and of course I'm going to be exploring even more power and even higher top speeds, so be on the lookout for more videos and more builds of things that are even more ridiculous than this bike here, because this is already way faster than anyone could ever need a bicycle to do. And speaking of e-bike top speeds, or I should say e-motorcycle top speeds, if you look at the major e-motorcycle manufacturers, the top speeds aren't that crazy, especially compared with internal combustion motorcycles. The thing is, when you're dealing with a direct drive drive electric powertrain, you are limited within a bandwidth that if you don't have a transmission, you can't kind of climb higher out of that with the same power input. Just from an engineering perspective, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have your bike go 130 to 190 miles per hour, because unless you're on the Autobahn or running from the cops, it doesn't really make any sense, just because, yeah, you can do it, but most people aren't going to do that anyway. In my opinion, having an insanely high top speed is kind of overrated, and of course you get the bragging rights of my number is higher than yours and all that if you're into it, but for me, acceleration is where it's at, and of course EVs have this in spades when compared to the alternative. To me, in my belief, this is the golden age of the e-bike, and it is the very best time to jump on the bandwagon and to get involved, because right now it's kind of like the Wild West. There aren't a ton of regulations and rules. I know there are in a lot of other countries, but I believe here it's definitely coming, and the best way to enjoy something is before all of the regulations, the rules. You got to have this permit, you got to pay this fee, all that stuff. Right now, you're just completely free. And that is a feeling that I felt so immensely on this ride, of just being out almost entirely by myself, because I didn't really see many other cars or people. I felt like this city was mine, and I could just ride anywhere I wanted and feel a complete and pure sense of freedom. Not only the freedom, but this night ride gave me the nostalgia of being 15 and a half, having my learner's permit for driving, and finally turning 16 and knowing that I could drive anywhere. The entire world was mine, and all I had to do was get in a car and take off and go see it. But as time passes, as it unrelentingly does for everyone, you start having those incredible feelings of joy and freedom from your youth slowly start to fade and wither, just like the changing of the seasons. What was once something that gave you such great feelings now has turned into something that is more like work. You have to take effort. It's a chore. It's very boring to be in your car. You've already driven so many times, you're completely sick of it. To me, riding this specific bike that I built on this beautiful evening that was seemingly all to myself has brought back those feelings of freedom. I can ride on the sidewalk, I can ride in the bike lane, I can ride in the street. There are no boundaries. There's also nobody telling me you need a license, you need insurance, you need to do this, you need to jump through these hoops. To me, this is the essence of freedom at this moment of time, and if you guys are not capitalizing on it, then honestly I feel like you guys are missing out. You don't have to get a bike that costs so much. Just any bike with a motor on it, go take it out for a spin, go enjoy your freedom while you still can. Because I'm calling it now, you can mark my words, and I honestly hope that I'm wrong, but I see this space coming down with all kinds of regulations and rules and permits and licenses, and all those things that they did with cars, they're gonna try to do with these things. Because I'll admit, and this is coming from a car guy who absolutely loves and adores cars, that cars themselves are a terrible form of transportation for humans. And if you feel that's a hot take and you want me to divulge why I think these things, I'm more than happy to make another night ride video going on a rant all about that stuff. And speaking of good modes of transportation, I recently found some infographic. I don't know where it was. I wish I could remember where I saw this, but I saw there was an infographic stating that e-bikes are actually the most efficient form of transportation. I think this is just in terms of energy used to cover distance. It used to be walking was the most efficient form of transportation, but e-bikes are actually more efficient than just using your body. And if you can beat out nature, evolution, God, or the simulation, however you want to define it, if you can make something more efficient than that, that's a big W in my opinion. Now, I can't vouch for the validity of these claims, and I'm sure if you ask a certain person or have a certain study, they will show you all the contrary. Unfortunately, I feel like we are living in a post-truth society where the facts and the truth don't really matter anymore, and it's more about your belief and how you feel, which is kind of dangerous, but again, I can save that for another video. I'm just saying I didn't do a personal deep dive on the information behind these graphics. I didn't make the graphics, I just saw it and I thought it was interesting, so I'm sharing it with you guys. This one's already getting pretty long, so I have a ton more topics that I could just go forever on, but hopefully you guys have enjoyed at least this new kind of thing that I'm trying, and obviously let me know in the comments if you do, or if you hate it, or whatever you feel. Just let me know so I can either continue making similar kind of content as this. I'm trying something new and I definitely need your feedback, so I really appreciate that. And I also thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. I know this was a long one and maybe I can trim these down to make them a bit shorter, but I just have a ton of stupid things to say, and if you're willing to listen to it, then I appreciate it, so thank you very much. I have a ton of parts coming for the Cafe Racer build. I also have a couple of videos backlogged from that series that I need to finish and upload. I also have been brainstorming profusely a new crazy e-bike build, so I will happily be able to show you guys that sometime soon. I also have a whole series on my car that I want to show you guys. It's just more of everything, and hopefully you guys like this video. Stay tuned and I will see you in the next one.